Good morning, everyone, and welcome to dLocal's Product Insights webinar series. Thank you for joining us this morning. I see a few folks are still trickling in, but we have a good enough audience already in attendance, so we'll get started. The focus of our webinar today is to discuss how to design a frictionless customized checkout with client-side encryption using smart fields. I'm Danielle Gotkis, SVP of Marketing at dLocal, and today I'm joined by our product manager, Federico Mazzoli, who is joining us from our office in Montevideo, Uruguay. Hi, Federico.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So on our agenda today, we have about 45 minutes planned for this webinar. Can you switch to the next slide, please? Excellent, thank you. So we have about 45 minutes planned for this webinar. During the first 30 minutes or so, we have planned content that will focus on giving you an introduction into smart fields. We'll discuss causes of friction at the checkout. We'll give you examples of what suboptimal payment experience looks like and discuss how that can be fixed with a smart fields capability. We'll give you a variety of UI examples so you can decide what may work for your business, and take a quick look behind the scenes to understand what the data flow looks like between your page, our servers, tokenization, and so on. Quick recap, of course, and then we have about 10-15 minutes planned for Q&A. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. On your right-hand side, you can see there is a GoToWebinar control panel, and there is a place to submit questions. We'll take a look at those throughout the presentation, and so if there is a place to ask those, I will ask Fede to address them. Otherwise, we will make sure to address them during the Q&A. And last but not least, in the next few days, you will receive a recording of this webinar. So you'll be able to share it with your colleagues, review it on your own, and use it as you wish. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into our content. So quick introduction to dLocal for those of you in the audience who may not be familiar with us. We're a 360 payments technology platform focusing uniquely on emerging markets. In essence, we enable localized payments acceptance and payouts in growth markets in Latin America, in APAC, and in EMEA, specifically for SaaS, online, travel companies, marketplaces, online retail, digital entertainment companies as well. We do this through our best-of-breed API-based platform, making sure that merchants are able to leverage all the locally relevant payment methods in these markets. And currently, we support about 300 plus of those. We're lucky to work with some of the most innovative companies in the world, like Uber, Booking.com, GoDaddy, Wikimedia, Sony PlayStation, and Avast, just to give you an idea. In addition to enabling local payment methods, we do quite a bit on the back end, as well as operationally, to optimize the process of handling mass payments in these markets, because as you know, these markets are not necessarily as advanced as US and European markets. And so there's quite a bit that we need to do to optimize the flow of payments. Smart Fields is one of those examples and the topic of our conversations today. So what are Smart Fields? Smart Fields are a series of customizable UI components that we developed to enable you to build a pixel-perfect checkout on your website. It utilizes a client-side encryption to handle payment information. So if you fall into a camp where you're not a PCI compliant merchant, for example, or perhaps you use a third party to handle data encryption and data information, this solution is designed specifically for you. So what you can see here on the right-hand side is an example of a checkout form that a user would see during their process. The top two fields, the name information and their email, this is actually something that's hosted and handled by the merchant. And then the credit card information field, in this case, in the case of Smart Field, is actually hosted by us and handled through the Smart Fields capability. You can see that it's all presented within one UI. There is the same type of font, the same type of colors. So to the user, it really appears as a one unified experience. They never have to leave your website through a redirect. It's not appearing as a generic iframe. So from that perspective, it's a much smoother and a much user friendlier experience than other options. Next slide, please. Okay, so Federico, I'd like to invite you here. Yeah, if you can walk us through some of the examples of UI.
Thanks, Daniel. So the great thing about Smart Fields is that you can make your checkout look any way you want. It's completely customizable. Here are a bunch of examples that you can see of what you can build with Smart Fields. It's completely up to you, and you will get this deck later on. Here's a link to a bunch of examples that I'm going to show you now.
So hopefully you can see in the audience that you can dictate the colors, the shapes of the fields, square, round, whatever you decide, and whatever really works with your website.
Right. So here you can access this page where you can see a bunch of examples that shows you the flexibility of Smart Fields. Here you have a very simple donate checkout. Here's a much more complex one with a lot of information. There are a lot of examples that you can see. Here is one that asks for installments that are especially important in Latin America. But let's look at one of them in particular. Let's look at this one. So I'm going to complete this form. The first thing that I see is that, well, it looks like the whole form is hosted by the merchant. All the fields look the same. There's nothing strange or different about the credit card fields. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with Smart Fields. So I'm going to put the credit card information. Just put a random credit card. As you can see, while I type, the brand is automatically detected, as well as the format of the card. Because it's a Visa, it's grouped by fours, and that's completely handled by fields. As soon as I finish typing the credit card number, it takes me to the next field. So it's very smooth, and the flow it's very continuous. And that's it. Now I can finish putting my name. As you can see, it's very customizable. The labels, this effect that you see the big label, and then when you click on it, it moves to the top. That's something that you can do. You can add tips, so you can explain what the security code is, for example. It's very flexible. So after I'm done completing the form, I would press on complete payments. And what will happen here, and then we're going to talk about this later in the presentation, the information inside the Smart Fields is going to be sent to the local servers. We're going to return a token that represents that credit card information on our servers, and you're going to use that token to make your purchase. So now I'm going to give it back to you, Daniel.
Excellent, thank you. So we touched upon some of these things already, but who is Smart Fields ideal for? So if you're a merchant who is already transacting in Latin America, in APAC, or in MENA, especially in the markets that we cover at dLocal, this is designed specifically to remove frictions in these markets. If you're a current customer of ours and utilizing either a redirect or an iframe integration, this is a vast improvement on those two solutions. And we will probably be contacting you in the next week or so if we already haven't discussed with you on how to move into this new capability with us. And last but not least, again, this is specifically designed for merchants who are non-PCI compliant, or those who are not handling credit card information internally. If you're using an API integration, a full API integration with us already, you probably developed this capability on your own. If not, we'll be more than happy to discuss this with you as well. A quick touch base on what PCI means. I know there's a variety of merchants here in the audience. So So a quick reminder on that. PCI is a data security standard that ensures that any company who accepts, processes, stores, transmits credit card information, they have the ability to maintain a secure environment. This is a stringent certification process. If you're PCI compliant, you probably have gone through this process, so you know what it means. If you haven't, that means you are not PCI compliant. At dLocal, we are PCI DSS level compliant. And so the solution specifically is designed for those who are not, once again, or merchants who are handling credit card information through a third party. All right, so let's talk about friction. Anyone who's in the e-commerce business, we're all focused on figuring out how we can optimize the experience for the user, so there is less shopping cart abandonment, and really focusing on reducing friction at every step we can. It's a series of incremental steps, and SmartFields is really designed to reduce those incremental steps and improve conversions. I read a report lately that talked about 50% of merchants believe that checkout friction causes shopping cart abandonment. So clearly, this is one of the most important features that you can tackle to that you can implement to reduce shopping cart abandonment. So some of the things that you're probably familiar with, right? Look and feel doesn't feel natural to the user, especially when you think about users who are in a different country, who may not necessarily be exposed to e-commerce day to day when they're interacting with a merchant who is from a different country. If they're being handed off from a website that looks really nice all of a sudden to a page that simply the look and feel doesn't look aligned, right? It seeds doubt in their mind, and then it can cause drop off. If there's too many steps to complete a payment, again, this is something that can cause users to drop off. Too much time, and we've seen this with a redirect. Again, users will drop off, and when it comes to times, especially Wi-Fi networks are not always reliable in Latin America, in places like India and Morocco and Egypt. Again, users will drop off here. Potential security concerns, they're dealing with a merchant that's in a different country, they being redirected to a different page. Sometimes that page not even doesn't look the same. All of a sudden it will have the name of your processor, but then the user hasn't been introduced to the processor. So there's a concern that they may be redirected to a fraudulent page. So these are some of the things that we've tackled, and some of the reasons there is friction at the checkout. Next slide, please. So our goal is to really give you the tools to not lose these high-intent shoppers who've already spent however many minutes or hours on your website, went through the product evaluation process, chose that product, and then at the final stage, they are at this checkout stage and dropping off for the reasons we've just discussed. So in our early results, we can actually see that SmartFields improve payment conversion rate by as much as 30%. So 30%, that's huge, especially when we're talking about incremental improvements, and some of our merchants are, they're concerned with how they can improve it by 1 or 2%. In this case, 30%, I think that's quite a jump. Next slide, please.
Okay, so
all right,
now
so Federico, yeah, if you can walk us through how SmartField tackles this.
Yeah, so let's take a look at first. Let's take a look at an example of a typical redirect flow that you need to use if you're not PCI compliant, if you need to use a third party to process your credit card payments. Let's analyze that first. So the first thing that the user would do would be to typically select the credit card or the brand of the card that they want to pay with. When they click, a new page would open. It might take a few seconds for the page to load. If the user looks at the domain name, they might even find that it's a different domain name than the one from the merchant, which might create some suspicion. And once it loads, it looks completely different. The look and feel, the colors, the fonts, everything, it's different because obviously it's handled by the third party, not by you. So this is something that the user won't be expecting, and especially in Latin America and emerging countries where online payments, people are still getting used to online payments. The less friction that you can provide, the better. So to summarize, redirect flows, the look and feel is not aligned with the rest of your website. If there is some customization, that is going to be very limited. It's probably going to take a long time to load. You have no control of the size of the checkout that you're loading. As I mentioned, buyers might feel security concerns. They might not be confident on putting their credit card information on a strange site. And it adds more and more steps to the buying process, and that obviously reduces conversion. Now let's look at an iframe, the iframe solution. This is better than the redirect because you are not taken to a new page, and the steps needed to complete the payment are fewer. But here, this is a classic example where I embed the iframe, and it looks pretty different to the rest of my website. It looks like an ad or something that I forced there. Maybe there's some customization. Maybe I can change the color of the button, and that's it. But for the most part, what you see is what you get, and there's not much you can do about it. So again, the fonts, the color, the styles, the whole site needs to adapt to the iframe and not the other way around, and that's not how it should be. And in some cases, again, it might take a long time to load because you have no control of what's been loading on that iframe. And so we built smart fields to remove all these problems, remove the friction to boost the payment completion. The look and feel is completely customizable to match the look and feel of the rest of your site. The loading times are minimized. There's no redirection or no big heavy iframe to load. The customers are going to feel safe to make the payment because you're not leaving the site. The look and feel is always consistent. And all the additional UX features that SmartFields provide makes the whole buying experience as good as it gets. So now let's take a look at some of these additional features that I was mentioning. First of all, the one that I showed before, as you type the credit card number, the brand is automatically detected and is shown there to give confidence to the user that they are they're not making any mistakes. Also, the format is automatically executed, so the user can easily see the numbers as they see it on their card. If they finish entering the whole number of the credit card and there's a mistake, we will identify that mistake right away and show it to the user so they can go right ahead and make the change in real time. And we designed SmartFields mobile first, so this is going to work great in mobile devices, laptops, desktop, you name it. Now, SmartFields is very flexible, and there are a lot of different checkouts that you can build. Here are two examples. The one on the left has the credit card number, the expiration dates, and the security code all on the same field. This works especially good on mobile devices because the flow is really great, and it's very easy to move from one field to the other one without removing your thumbs from the keyboard. And the one on the right is the more classical view, where the card number, the expiration date, and the security code are separate. This, I would say, is the most traditional one, and a lot of customers are going to feel more confident with this one. Here you have more rooms to add tips, for example, for the security code. That's a pretty common use. But which one is better for your sites? Well, you won't know until you test both. So with Smart Fields, it's very easy to do A/B tests to figure out which is the best solution for your particular checkout. Now let's look a little bit behind the scenes and see how this actually works without getting into too much detail. So as Danielle mentioned before, the whole checkout is gonna be hosted by you, by the merchant, except for the sensitive data. So the card number, the expiration date, and the security code, that's gonna be hosted by the local. So what happens is that the user is gonna enter their credit card information and they're gonna click on submit. As soon as they do, that sensitive information is gonna be sent directly to the local server. This means that you as a merchant, you will never have access to that sensitive information. The local processes that information and returns a token to the form as a hidden field. And once you have that, you just send that token right to your servers. And once you have it secure in your servers, you can go ahead and make the payment. Now, it's worth saying that this token that is sent through the browser, this token is a temporary token. So it expires after 10 minutes or after one payment. So it's very secure to use for that payment.
Fede, and what happens in a recurring payment scenario since the token is a timed one?
Right, that's a good question. So in case you want to make recurring payments or you have a subscription service, instead of making the payments, because that's going to kill the token after one payment, you want to save the card. So instead of calling the create payment method, you use the create a card method, and that's going to return you a permanent token that you can use to make further purchases. But that token is going to be a server-to-server token, so it's more secure than this temporary token that you created with Smart Fields. All right, so let's summarize why you should implement Smart Fields today. First of all, you're going to increase conversion by minimizing the friction in the checkout process, by blending the look and feel of your checkout with the rest of your website. Your conversion is going to increase. You should expect at least 10 percentage point increase versus conversional iframe checkouts, and up to 30 percentage point increase versus redirect checkouts. So it's really great. The other benefit is that you get the easiest PCI compliance available without any effort. As Danielle mentioned before, if you are a merchant and you're handling credit card information in any way, you need to be compliant with PCI. And by using Smart Fields, you are compatible with the SAQ-A, the self-assessed questionnaire A, which is the easiest way to become compliant with PCI. It's just a one-page form that we can fill it for you. So it's as easy as it gets. And also you get secure payments by not handling yourself the credit card information and leaving it all up to us. You're free from any security concerns that you might have. It's very, very almost impossible for malicious actors to steal any sensitive information, as everything is on this little iframe that is the Smart Fields, and it's super secure. So now I'm gonna give it back to Danielle so she can talk about the next steps after this.
Excellent. Thank you, Federico. So some of the next steps for those of you in the audience, resources. There's a webinar download link. As I mentioned, you will receive a recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to share it with everyone. Documentation, very easy to find. It's on our website, docs.dlocal.com. This is where you can get all the API related information. You can get, you can see screenshots. You can see how you would need to go about to implement Smart Fields, and really any other capabilities that we have available under our platform. If you want to implement Smart Fields and already working with dLocal, please contact your account manager if they've already haven't been in touch with you, Our goal is to reach out to all of our existing accounts within the next 10 days. So if you haven't heard from us, please raise a flag and we'll make sure that somebody responds to you. But we started rolling this process out already. If you're currently not working with dLocal and what you've heard sounds interesting, please email us at sales@dlocal.com. We'll be happy to do a demo as well as show you what else we can do for you to improve payment acceptance in countries like Brazil and Mexico and Argentina and Colombia and a number of other markets in Latin America, as well as in India and Morocco and Egypt and Turkey. So we would love to hear from you. That summarizes pretty much what we've had presented, what we've had prepared for you today. Q&A is kicking off now, and I actually already have a couple of questions from the audience. As a reminder, please feel free to use the questions field in the control panel on your right-hand side. So first question we have from the audience. This seems to be similar to Stripe Elements functionality. Is that so?
Yes, that's correct. And Stripe uses elements, Braintree uses hosted fields. The leaders of the industry are going to this solution to help businesses build the best checkouts without the hassles of PCI compliance. So we are following the trend. We are using the latest technology available to help you have the best solution possible.
Excellent. Do smart fields work with payment methods other than credit cards?
So today, smart fields are only available for credit card payments or debit card payments, of course. But still, our API supports all kinds of payment methods. So by integrating only once, you get the benefits of being able to make any kind of payments, either credit cards or alternative payment methods.
Good. Another question here. How flexible are the UI components?
It's super flexible. It's if you think you can make it, you can probably make it. All the colors can be changed, the fonts, the size, the shapes, shadows, animations. You can change the different events, what happens with the autocomplete when you switch from one field to the other one. Basically, almost everything that CSS allows you to do, you can do it.
Excellent. Another question. I'm glad to see all these questions from the audience. I already use your full API in Brazil, Argentina, and Colombia. Is there a benefit for switching to smart fields?
Yeah, of course, there's a benefit. So there are basically two big benefits. One, if you just don't want to handle credit card information for whatever reason, even if you can trust on us to handle the credit card information for you, and you can make payments just with a card token. Besides that, Smart Fields provides a lot of additional UX features to make the buying experience a lot better. So you can make use of all those features out of the box with Smart Fields.
Excellent. Another question, and I can probably address this one. Is this solution available for India? Of course, this solution is available for India. And this is true to a lot of capabilities and features that we have developed within dLocal. Because we have a platform approach to handling payment problems, everything we built is built into the platform so that you can, if there's a capability that you use in one country, you can bring into another. And as Federico mentioned, it's all available to you through that same one API. All right. Another question: how easy is it to implement smart fields?
It's really straightforward. If you're already integrated with our latest API, it will take a front-end developer probably an afternoon or a day tops. In our documentation, you can see a step-by-step guide on how to integrate. And let me go back to the examples. If you liked any of these examples, or you think that some of them might match your website, you can see the code on GitHub right here for any of these examples. So you can borrow the CSS or the JavaScript required to build the form.
All right, very good. So at this point, I don't see any other questions from the audience. Let's give folks a minute or so to see. There we go. Another question. When you say with your latest API, what are you referring to? We currently are integrated with the redirect method. Is that the latest API?
So our latest API is the one that you can see at docs.dlocal.com, the link that Daniel showed a couple of minutes ago. If you're already integrated with us, you're probably using Streamline. You will need to integrate with our new latest API 2.0 to be able to use smart fields, which you could still use the redirect, but we would highly recommend you to use smart fields.
And do we have a transition plan that we'll be able to share with our merchants? I think the answer is yes, but Feder, you can probably address it better.
Yes, we can, and we can share with anyone who wants it.
Sure. And to the person who asked the question, thank you. We know who you are. I'll make sure somebody reaches out to you today.
Great.
Okay, so I think we're a little bit ahead of time. So a gift of time, I think, is valuable to all of us and all of you in the audience. So with that in mind, thank you so much for spending 30 minutes out of your day with us. Hopefully you learned something valuable. We'll be in touch. If you have any questions, please email us at marketing@dlocal.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.